The Dukes of Dice are brought to you by Arcane Wonders, Game Toppers, super secret surprise episodes, and listeners like you.
Welcome to the Duchy. It's time for another episode of the Dukes of Dice podcast, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network.
Coming to you from the Duchy in the Duke City, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and the Gateway City, St. Louis, Missouri, it's The Dukes of Dice, a podcast about board card and occasionally role-playing games. Today, Dukes have a super secret surprise episode. First up, Alex has a holding court with Justin Jacobson from Restoration Games. And then Sean has a super secret review of the newest set of Unmatched, Beowulf, and Red Riding Hood. And now, The Dukes of Dice.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. This is Sean.
And also Alex.
And this is episode 239, Cyberhood. Ooh, Cyberhood, that title suggestion, thanks to my favorite guild member, Sean Ramirez. Yeah, let's hear it for Sean Ramirez.
Yeah, it was like the bad old days with this one, Sean.
Oh, boy.
Just because we couldn't post this on the guild because it's a super secret surprise episode, and the names wouldn't make sense other than saying, hey, it's a surprise episode, give us your name. But that doesn't seem like a lot of fun. So, yeah. So we just had to name it ourselves, Sean, and I don't feel bad about it.
So this episode is coming out on Cyber Monday. It's actually, well, we'll talk more about the timing of it later, but Cyber Monday, it's a super secret release of Unmatched and about Little Red Riding Hood. So there's the Cyberhood. And really, what is Cyberhood? That makes no sense. I have no idea what that is. That doesn't mean anything. And we both agreed that it's bad enough that that's good to go, if that makes any sense.
And that was the old standard for episode names.
Well, I think we thought we were clever. Like there were some where we knew it was bad, but I think most of the time, at least I thought I was being clever, but it was bad. It was not good. Not good, Alex.
It would be interesting to go back through the old episodes and rate the names based on how they stack up now.
Let's actually spend a whole episode doing that.
Okay, I'm down. I'm down for it. Let's do it.
Oh,
special upcoming segment on the Dukes of Dice.
Wow. That sounds just terrible. So Alex, fill in kind of where we're at programming wise.
I don't know what that question means.
Okay, great. I'll fill us in programming wise. So we're actually recording this episode right after we recorded episode 238 because as we're recording, the Thanksgiving holiday, the American Thanksgiving holiday is quickly approaching, and then also the timing of when this is being released. So we're releasing episodes in back-to-back weeks as opposed to our every other week, and then we're going to resume a every other week schedule. So that's just kind of the quick background.
Sean, you ruined the joke. I was about to jump in and say, and from now on, we're going back to our weekly recording schedule.
No, thank you, sir. Thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. Because of the timing of this announcement. Now, and Sean, some background on this. Sue's from Restoration and also the Dice Tower and good friend of the show, Duke Suzanne, had come to us and said, hey, I have a few advanced copies. What do you think? And our reaction was, yeah, we like Unmatched. And 2, we want to be relevant again, Sean. We don't get review copies anymore. We don't do any of these early you see all these other folks talking about things ahead of time. And you know what, Sean? Just once, I wanted to feel the old glory days again by releasing something at the exact time it was being announced / released. So you know what? I feel great. Sean. I feel important again.
It's good stuff. It is good stuff. So yeah, we don't really have recent plays to talk about. We're not going to do another Dukes of Diet because it'll be the same thing that it was last episode. So I think, Alex, we're just going to jump right in, right?
Yeah. First up is my conversation with Justin Jacobson from Restoration Games. Did a holding court. Oddly enough, I have interviewed at different points just about everyone else involved in that company. Rob Davio has been on. Suzanne has been on. But not the main man himself. And I thought it was a pretty good conversation. So that's up first. And then afterward, Sean, you have a review of the new set and the new characters. And we'll go from there.
Well, I'm still pretty stuffed from our American Thanksgiving dinner. I had a delicious prime rib that we made, and it was so good. Still totally full, but you know what that means now that Thanksgiving is over here in the United States? That means it's time for Black Friday savings. And of course, our friends over at Game Toppers have some great deals for you to check out. So head on over to their website, gametoppersllc.com, and there's a link for their Black Friday deals. Their Black Friday deals are only for a limited time from November 27th to December 14th. You can save $50 on shippings with certain qualified purchases. Also, you can get a free game mat with any elementary Black Friday package specials. That's up to a $99 value. Folks, these game toppers are fantastic. They're a great way for you to upgrade your gaming experience without having to have a super expensive dedicated gaming table. I highly encourage you go check this out. But act quick, there's not gonna be much time while this ad is up for you to go take advantage of these awesome Black Friday specials. So head on over to gametoppersllc.com. Even if you missed the Kickstarter, you can still order now. So hurry, go do it. Go check it out. Thanks to Game Toppers.
Well, I am pleased, honored, thrilled, insert thing here, adjective here, to be joined by Justin Jacobson, head honcho over at Restoration Games. Justin, I've interviewed just about everyone else on your team, I think, but not you. How is that possible?
Save the best for last. I don't know.
I saved something for last. There's no doubt about that. Justin, thanks for joining us. For folks who don't know, again, Justin, head of Restoration Games, and someone who I have known for a decent amount of time, and at least a previous listener of the show. I know for myself, Justin, I know about you. Podcasts are less of a thing now that I'm not driving anywhere. So I don't know if you're much the same in that way.
I am, for exactly the same reason. I still do walk my dog every morning, so I do get that chunk of podcast. And I will say this is, I'm not kissing up or anything. I have told Suzanne this; she can verify my favorite podcast, other than Secret Cabal. You two are like neck and neck for me, and then of course I like the Dice Tower as well. Those are my three core podcasts that I listen to regularly. A few others that I do when I have time, but definitely my top three. So
that was a compliment that started off really high. Like, oh, this is the best podcast I listen to. Well, okay, there's Secret Cabal too. Well, okay, there's Dice Tower too. I get the Dice Tower one. Obviously, there's some connections there. And I certainly get the Secret Cabal one because I think if you were to do it based on vote tally in terms of popularity, I think there's no question there. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Justin, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Before you were launching Restoration Games, what were you doing for folks who don't know your background? Where did you come from ahead of this whole industry?
So I've been a gamer my entire life. My dad and my uncle played games all the time, and we lived very close. And my cousins and I would play games as well. So, Dungeons and Dragons, the earliest Euro games. We played war games, just nonstop, all games. And then my dad, who was a lawyer, when I graduated college in 1992, yikes.
Whoa.
Yeah. If you didn't know what you wanted to do, you did one of two things. You either went into consulting, whatever that is, right? Or you went to law school. And my dad was a lawyer. So I had an inkling of wanting to be a lawyer. I didn't really have any. So I went to law school and I became a lawyer. Now, all my friends who went into consulting, this was right before the tech bubble. So they're all independently wealthy and retired now.
Yeah,
but,
that'll do it.
I went to law school. I became a lawyer. I worked at another firm for a couple of years and then went to work with my dad's law firm. And I ended up running that firm. And I just got totally burnt out, basically. I was just really, the practice of law changed a lot. It wasn't what I wanted. And it's funny. So that one of the reasons why I like your podcast is because I feel like I'm very simpatico with you and Alex, and you and Sean in a number of ways. And Sean, obviously, one of the ways I feel connection with him is the fact that he's a lawyer as well. So whenever he's telling his war stories, I'm always muttering under my breath, and that's why I'm not a lawyer anymore. So I did that for a number of years, but I always was into gaming. And one of the things I used to do every year is I would go to Gen Con, and I would put on a seminar, a legal Q&A, which was basically just an excuse to write off the trip as a tax, as a business expense. And then one year, a nice young woman came up to me after the seminar and said her husband was getting ready to leave Hasbro, and they wanted to pick my brain for a few questions. Could they take me to dinner? that was Lindsay Davio, Rob Davio's wife. And we had a very lovely dinner. And I sort of became friends with Rob and became his attorney after that. I would, on a pro bono basis, I would just, review some contracts for him and answer questions or whatever. And like I said, right about then was when I started getting burnt out with the practice of law. It's changed quite a bit from when I started practicing. And it was wearing on me. I mean, there's the stress and it wasn't as fulfilling as it was when I had started. And I had this weird, I guess it's cliche where you're in the shower and you have this great idea. So I'm sorry for conjuring that image for some people, but I had this idea. I said, sorry, one step back. During the third edition of Dungeons and Dragons, I had done some self-publishing under the open game license, under the name of Blue Devil Games. I had published a few supplements and campaign settings and things like that. And I always enjoyed that as part of the hobby of games. And so this was right around when Kickstarter was also picking up. And I had this idea of I was seeing people talk about Grail games. And one of the games they talked about was Star Wars Queen's Gambit. And I thought to myself, well, you could redo that game if you take out the Star Wars IP, which, it was episode 1. So anyway, right?
Yep.
And you could redo that game. And I was like, before, obviously, I couldn't do a game. But with Kickstarter now, it seemed like it was a possibility. So this, again, was just when Kickstarter was picking up for board games. And, of course, by that time, I had been working with Rob. And his job at Hasbro, he worked on Star Wars Queen's Gambit. So, and his job at Hasbro, one of the main things he did was he took existing titles and figured out ways to do new iterations of them, whether it was with a new IP or a different version or a faster game or a younger game or whatever it is, right? And so I went to Rob and I said I approached him with this idea of taking Star Wars Queen's Gambit and redoing it. He was now out of Hasbro. And he said, well, we can't really do that game for a number of reasons. But he liked the idea. And really what we did is we just started talking about these old games that we used to play when we were kids and sort of modernizing them. And that there would be something there was different. So funny, same time, I'm down here in South Florida. I know Tom Vassell, Dice Tower, from game days, local game days here. And I used to talk to him, and he always says, people always say they want to start a game company. They might have a game that they want to publish. They don't want to find a publisher. They can't find a publisher. So they decide to start their own game company. He's always telling people, don't start your own game company. So I had this idea, and I went to Tom and I said, Tom, I'm thinking about starting a game company. Before you say anything, let me tell you what the idea is. And I told him, we're going to take these old games and modernize them. And he's like, you know what? That's actually kind of a cool idea. Maybe it'll work or whatever. And so we just talked about it a little more, and that's really how it became. I made Rob an offer he couldn't refuse. Like I said, I'm an attorney, so good at negotiating.
Yep.
And we weren't sure, it was just an idea. But Rob's, as good as they come as far as game design. We immediately brought on Jason Taylor, who was also worked at Hasbro, amazing graphic designer. Very shortly thereafter, Lindsay officially joined the team. She's an amazing graphic designer and production person. And we put this first slate of 3 games out there and put it out into the wilderness and see how it did. And it just struck a chord. And it turned out that the idea was a good one. And so that's how I ended up where I was. But lawyer by trade, recovering lawyer today. I still use a lot of my legal skills, but I just use them for good instead of evil.
At least for the good of restoration. I hopefully for good overall. I certainly think gamers would agree that it's for the good.
I think so.
Yeah. So in terms of, you mentioned lawyer skills, and this was a question that came to mind. Obviously, things like contract negotiations, other negotiations, you're going to nail. No problem at all. What was the one skill that you think you most needed to shore up, or you most felt unprepared for in taking on that role at Restoration?
That's an interesting question. So at the end of when I was practicing law, my dad had retired. I had taken over the law firm, so I was running a business. It's a bigger business than what I had now. We had 25 some odd employees. So I was used to running a business, but it was a very different kind of business because it was a services business, not a product business, not a consumer business. And so there were definitely skills as far as logistics and things. I just sales tax and all kinds of weird stuff that I didn't know anything about as far as from running a business. And that was part of the offer that Rob couldn't refuse. Is I told him all he had to do was focus on, making games, and he wouldn't have to worry about all the business stuff. And so there was a lot of that I had to learn. And it's challenging. It's not it's the not fun part of the job. There are people. I've actually met a few people who like the logistics side of them, and I'm always amazed at that. It's definitely not fun for me.
Boy, it's something that I think so many gamers, you think about getting into the industry, and I don't think folks realize completely all of the different things that can go wrong. So many different things that can go wrong between an idea and a really, really great design and actually getting the thing into existence, right?
Yeah. And that's, you see that with people with Kickstarter. It's good, and it's the good and bad, right? Like, it's great that these people are able to sort of see their dreams come true and do this, but then there's all kinds of things they can get themselves into trouble with, not knowing the other side of that business. Whether it's how to get the games imported into the country or through distribution, or a lot of the finances of that side of things.
If modern day Justin Jacobson could get in a time machine and talk to Justin Jacobson on day one of Restoration Games, what advice would he give that Justin Jacobson?
Oh, that's an easy one. Start working on Hero Quest sooner. So, for those who don't know, that was my great white whale that I wanted to land. Sort of since I started the company, it was we from the day we started the company, we have a place on our website. We still do, by the way. If anyone hears it, they want to request a game, you go right to our website. At the top of the website, what game do you want us to bring back and why? And I do like that. It's really fun because I get to see a lot of these answers. So I see games that I've never heard of before, and then I see all the ones that people are requesting, and I get to see reasons, like people talking about how they played it with their dad when now they have kids. I want to play with their kids. Lots of sort of heartwarming stuff like that too. But Hero Quest, far and away, number one requested game, and very convoluted sort of rights issues and things with it. And I always sort of had it on the back burner, and I noodled around with it. And it's funny, I finally had an idea of how to approach it, and I just started working on it recently, and then we were really pretty close, I think, to maybe making it work. And then, of course, Hasbro swooped in, and now they're just recently did their own thing on their in-house crowdfunding website to bring it back. So at least it's coming back. That's cool. Not necessarily the way we would have done it, but it looks neat. And for the people who wanted to see a new version of it, I'm glad that it's coming back. So.
For, you see the behind the scenes of these, nostalgic games that folks are requesting. Is there one that surprised you that folks wanted to come back that you keep seeing that come up again and again?
Not really. It's weird. I mean, there's stuff. So it's funny. There's obviously different age groups. So there's like Fireball Island, for example, was heavily requested, and that was after my time. I'm an old fuddy-duddy. For a few years before that, I was too old for that. So when I looked at the game, I was like, I guess I could see it looks kind of cool, but the game itself, it didn't really impress me. But I wouldn't say I didn't understand it, because then I had Dark Tower, which, was the most amazing thing in the world from when I was a kid. And, but if you went and actually played it today, you'd be like, ooh, a little rough around the edges there. So, the ones that are funny are the ones where people who are requesting that we do Monopoly. I'm like, you can get Monopoly. I don't know what. I think it's just their way of asking us to fix Monopoly or something. I don't know what that is, but
I would be curious for Rob Davio's take on Monopoly.
Well, by all accounts, the best version of Monopoly ever made is the one by Rob Davio, Tropical Tycoon.
Oh yeah. Oh, sorry. They talked about this game on Flip the Table. Flip the Table, I think, talked about this.
So it's a cool version. That's Rob. Rob did that one. So yeah.
Well, fair enough. Well, then, again, much like many of these interviews, I feel like a dummy. Uh,
Well, you also like a lot of the games when you're working at Hasbro, they don't slap your name on the cover. So
that's fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. So, what is the thing that you are most proud of from your time at Restoration? Because it's been a number of years now, and there've been a number of big time projects. Is there one though that really still holds that special place in your heart?
ooh, are you saying just a thing or like a particular game?
You
Because
can take your pick. You can take your pick because it might
I,
not be a game. It might be
I,
something else.
yeah, well, so the first Gen Con in 2017 that we went to when we had our games out there, it was Downforce, Indulgence, and Stop Thief. We had a teeny tiny booth in the back in the entrepreneur section. But when that first day, people were lined up to get Downforce and some of the other games as well. But Downforce was the big seller that year, and lined up literally around the corner. And I had to take a moment, and I went to the corner of the exhibit hall, and I sat down in the corner, and I got misty eyed because for me, it actually worked. Like, this is a real thing. I can do this now for the rest of my life, basically. And because at the time, so I had this law practice. I was a successful attorney, owned my own firm, making good money, all that stuff, just completely stressed out and unfulfilled though. And this was this huge leap to say, all right, I'm going to stop practicing law and start a game publishing company. I mean, if you think about it, it sounds kind of bananas. And a credit to my wife, who was incredibly supportive. But still, that first year from when we started up until we released those games, no income, you don't know if it's going to work. Like, you're busy making the games and stuff, which is kind of fun. But, as a business, you don't know if it's going to work. And then at that moment when I knew it was going to happen it was the greatest feeling in the world.
It's interesting hearing you recap that because I think it can be so easy to forget in this hobby that behind every publisher name on every one of those boxes is someone's dream for the most part, right? Is someone's vision of this is what I want to do. I want to publish games, and those companies grow and change in ways that are unexpected and end up in places that people don't realize. But at the core of it is someone who just wanted to kind of share this with the world. And how that changes obviously depends on kind of constant cultivation and how you move forward. But it is interesting to hear. And I think the reason it strikes such a chord with me hearing you say that is thinking about this year and, how insane it is on so many fronts. But just to give folks a sense, Justin, at the start of 2020, before knowing any of this was going to happen, what was the planned release slate for Restoration games? And just maybe not specific titles, but just number of titles even.
Yeah, definitely a couple more games this year that we're looking to do this year that got pushed to next year. There was a game that we took a look at that has we ended up just not being able to make it work. Key to the Kingdom was one that was supposed to be coming out this year. We had some trouble getting that one finalized, and then on top of that, with everything going on in 2020, and on top of that, this Return to Dark Tower, getting this project to bed, so to speak. Really, it's been a pretty quiet year for us, other than Unmatched. Thank goodness for Unmatched.
Yeah.
So yeah, next year should be Hoppin' Johnny, as the kids say. The kids don't actually say that. That's
no, I don't think anyone says that.
No,
actually,
do you know the story about this?
I have no, I absolutely don't.
I feel like I should tell this story, so put a pin in that.
Okay, got it. I'll come back to it.
Yeah, so it's been a challenging year for sure in some ways. Obviously, it started off with a bang with the Kickstarter, but then after that, it's definitely been just challenging in a number of ways. So yeah.
So where is Restoration in that mix, and where do you see the industry as a whole? Because obviously, you're not in a bubble, right? There's other folks around you. There's other publishers. There's other folks with a dream that you know. What are you hearing? What's the buzz among publishers in terms of how this year has really affected them?
It's interesting. It's very interesting because on the one hand, you have this massive increase in demand because people are at home a lot. Board games are good to play in quarantine, even although you can't get the groups together. So it feels uneven to me. But in general, the demand has been high, it feels like. And then also, obviously, online gaming demand has been very high. But then on the other hand, the whole distribution chain was disrupted, and specifically on the retailer side of things, like the stores, even if they're able to sell stuff, they tried to do curbside or limit people in store, but you definitely couldn't have Saturday game day where everybody just hangs out at the game store all day. And then invariably people will hang out and they'll pick up a game and all that stuff. So that's made it more challenging. It's moved a lot of stuff online. And it's interesting. I think in some ways, so we've been incredibly lucky this year in a number of ways. So first of all, the big one obviously is we had the Kickstarter right before this thing broke. Did huge number for us, honestly, enough cash to carry us through next year. But if it had been a month later, I don't know that it would have ended up that way. And then on top of that, we were going to be working on Dark Tower quite a bit, so we weren't worried about launching new games. I think anyone, and I know, in fact, trying to launch new games in this environment has been incredibly challenging, both in terms of the logistics of it, like getting it published and the manufacturing, getting out to distribution. A lot of that's been disrupted, but even just in terms of marketing, you don't have the conventions, which are very important in driving awareness of your games, getting people to see your games, creating that buzz. And then even just marketing in terms of, I think a lot of people marketing a new game is different. Like I think a lot of people were like relying on word of mouth, relying on those evergreen titles. So for us, we had Unmatched had been established, which was great. Our other titles, Downforce, Stop Thief, Dinosaur Tea Party, Fireball Island, they're sort of established. They've got good word of mouth. So they carried us a lot. So we've been doing incredibly well. But I know for a fact, I talked to some of the people in the industry, and I know for a fact that we are outperforming sort of the industry average in terms of just overall hobby sales this year.
Well, and somewhat of a stroke of luck that Unmatched is one that you can play more in quarantine because you don't need a large group to play Unmatched. It's a 2-player game at its core. That it can be played with more, but I mean that's a nice benefit of this in that you're not relying on a party game that's say 5, 6, or 7 players.
Yeah, no, for sure. And again, it's both an established line, but it's one that we can bring out sets for. So it's an established line that has new products. That's a tough thing to do, and they're not merely expansions. They're because it's a modular system where you can mix any two heroes. It definitely feels like it's a little bit fresher than just an expansion where you're sort of enhancing an existing game. So yeah, it's in many ways Unmatched is sort of like a perfect title for this type of environment we're in right now. So yeah, that's definitely helped for sure.
With the online conventions, with Gen Con online and some of these other kind of online events, I mean, is it really comparable? Is it really moving the needle in your experience compared to that actual in-person experience, or not really?
No, I mean, for us, complete non-starter. I mean, I don't know. It's interesting. I know some people really leaned into them, really put the time and the resources into it. That was something we decided sort of early on we just weren't going to do. We weren't super confident. And so I know there's a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy there, but I'm also looking at the numbers of what, and I hear, story. For example, I heard Ignacy talking about Essen recently, and those are sorts of same experience we've been hearing, where you're just not getting the types of engagement that you get when there's 60,000 people walking through an exhibit hall. You're not getting that same level of engagement. So it's interesting for us because of the conventions. Normally, they're very expensive. I know very expensive to attend. Get a full staff there, getting everybody there for a number of days, and the hotels and the travel and all that. And you're really just hoping maybe you can break even on the sales and use it. It's for marketing. And for us, it's essentially if no one gets to the benefit of the conventions, we don't need to worry about keeping pace with them. it's really just taking away a pretty big cost for us over the course of the year. So we love conventions, we love doing them, but in terms of the online stuff, it's been pretty nominal for us, and we've decided to focus on other stuff really. So.
What do you focus on in a year like this then, without the online stuff and without the in-person spend on conventions? You still need to get the word out, right?
Right. And so we've been focusing on social media. I think social media is, people are as locked into social media as they've ever been. And so for us, that's pretty strong. I try and be active on Twitter. I think it's a fun platform. I like interacting with fans and the other people in the industry. So that, by it being fun, I think it makes it more interesting and entertaining in a lot of ways. We've been doing some digital advertising, things like that. Again, we haven't really had any major launches, so we're other than the Unmatched stuff. So I think content creators are still an important part of that environment. There's people who are bored or at home or whatever, and so they're watching streamers and things like that, and listening to podcasts or whatever it might be. So I do think there's definitely a lot of opportunity there. And I think another big thing is when it started to go down, one of the things we looked at was like really rapidly moving into digital iterations of the games, and something we were sort of always looking at, but we really sort of put it into high gear when the pandemic really came into full bore there. So, for example, we got Downforce up on Board Game Arena. We did a free TTS module for Unmatched, and those have both been a huge success for us. So, for example, the Downforce module in BGA on Board Game Arena been incredibly popular. So, in addition to just getting royalties from that, we've noticed a bump in sales on a game for us that's now 3 years old, and still a lot of interest in the expansions and things like that. So that's good to see. We're trying to do more of that. And obviously, if you decide to make like a digital version of a game, you can't just turn around and do it in 2 weeks. So some of this stuff will bear fruit next year. But then we also think at that point it'll be there. Once it's done, and we'll sort of be in a good position to leverage that going forward.
If you were to look at your ideal version of Restoration Games 5 years from now, what does that look like, and how is it different from how Restoration is today?
That's a good question. So it's funny, when we started the company, Robin always said we wanted to be a year 2 company in year 1 and a year 5 company in year 2. Basically, the idea was we didn't want to look like we were just sort of a startup company, one of these little startup companies. We wanted to immediately hit the ground running and be considered sort of one of the top mid-tier, game publishing companies. And I feel like we've accomplished that. Really, it's just a dogged commitment to quality. We don't cut corners, all that stuff. Definitely different ways to run companies. I'm not, just trying to brag on ourselves, but focusing on like fewer numbers of games, but really make them stand out, really make sure they're exactly what we want to put out there, I think has been good for us. The problem is that the size of our team, we're just really strained to bring out any more games than we're doing right now. We are really at our limit. And so one of the things we're actively trying to do is get a couple more people on the team so we can expand a little bit. And we have these little choke points in our pipeline that we're trying to see if we can break through those so that we can, bring out a couple more games a year, that sort of thing, or at least be more agile in when we're bringing them out. And so I would say, 5 years down the road, if we had maybe 2 or 3 more people and a couple more different capacities, both on the production side and maybe a little bit on the logistics side, things like that, where just take that half step up, where we can bring out a few more titles, get a little bit bigger presence in the industry, that sort of thing. But I'm happy where we're at. Like I think I'm pleased with what I think our reputation is in the industry, that we've worked hard to cultivate, and the relationships that we've made with people in the industry and the fans. I'd like to get to 10,000 Twitter followers. So if you're not following me on Twitter, you can do that. We're very close.
So
Was
wait, is
that
this
too
a plug for
direct?
you? Is this a plug for your Twitter feed and also a call for resumes? If folks want to work for Restoration Games, where should they send their resumes to? Is that what
uh,
we're doing here?
I wouldn't go that far. Like,
Uh
I'm not
huh.
sure exactly what we need. Like, I know we're specifically have been looking for an additional graphic designer,
Okay. Yeah.
but we're actively looking for that. But if you happen to hear this and are interested, you can certainly send me a resume, Justin at restorationgames.com.
If graphic design is your passion,
Yeah,
Justin at restorationgames.com, send him your best work, whether that be in
sure.
Photoshop, whether that be in Microsoft Paint, whatever you've got, send it to Justin at restorationgames.com.
There you go. Listen, I work in MS Publisher, so
Okay. Hey,
people,
hey.
everybody on the team makes fun of me, but it works for me.
I was a big fan of Canva and Photopea when I was in the industry.
Those don't even sound real.
So Canva is absolutely real and legitimate. It's a good social media graphic program. Photopea is not. Photopea is a browser-based Photoshop knockoff.
Okay,
Uh, yeah, which I used out of necessity. So
sure.
anyway, uh, industry tales. Anyway, so you got advice from Tom Vassell a long time ago not to start a publisher, and then did anyway. With as you mentioned, his blessing and his thought that hey, this could actually work, and obviously it did. If there are other folks out there with a dream, because I think most anyone who's super passionate in the hobby has at least a thought that maybe they could be in the industry. What would be the advice? What would be the recommendation? What would be what would you say to them?
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on what you're looking for. Like, for example, I think it's perfectly fine to if you just want to publish your game. I think that's what Kickstarter is fundamentally for. Like, it works great for us on how we're using it, but at its core, it's designed like I have an idea for a project, I wouldn't be able to do it otherwise. You go to Kickstarter and you want to do a one person show on that. If that's what you're looking for, I think you can do it. Just know that it's a lot of work and make sure you dot your I's and cross your T's so you don't end up in a bad situation or aren't missing something. Ask questions. I'm always answering questions for people running Kickstarters. So, feel free to ask me questions. I'm always available. On the other hand, if you're looking to sort of make it as a career, I think the biggest thing you can do is figure out some value that you can bring to a company, and then just digitally pound the pavement, right? And I think a lot of the areas where people and whether you're starting off, on a fairly low paying area or whatever, or I wouldn't say unpaid, like we don't really believe in that personally as a corporate ethos, but if that's something you're comfortable with, depending on the nature of the thing. But so, for example, if you want to handle someone's social media on a particular platform, so for example, like us, nobody on our team likes Facebook. We all hate Facebook. So our Facebook presence is abysmal. If somebody came to me and said, "Hey, I will run your Facebook page for you for, some, minimal fee or or product or whatever," and that's how you get your foot in the door. And then if you do a good job, people will notice you. Like, there are plenty of positions in the industry for smart people who are willing to work hard, who are passionate about the work. Or if you find out, or I can help you run your replacement parts, fulfillment, or I can help you run replying to customer service emails or things like that are sort of the not very fun parts of the job, and you feel like you can be competent in that. But again, if I would do that if you were looking to make it a career, and then treat it that way, like treat it with seriousness and professionalism. I think some people figure, oh, board games, it's not a serious hobby, but it's a serious business. And so if you want to get into the business, you have to treat it seriously.
I think
That's my
that's
two
good.
cents.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. And you could also just start a board game podcast and happen to know Suzanne Sheldon at the right time, and that's another way in too.
There you go.
So yeah,
So, I don't know if you know, it's funny. I went up from the moment I started the company. I started like whispering in Suzanne's ear because I knew eventually I wanted to hire her. And then I made her an offer she couldn't refuse.
you're good at those.
It's a theme, yeah.
It's good to be wanted by Justin Jacobson. And
Well,
by the way, you choose well,
well,
obviously.
that's the thing is like for me, it's very important to choose the right people, and then make sure you compensate them and treat them well so that they'll stay. Because the hardest thing to find, like game designs, there's a million of them out there,
Oh yeah.
but finding good people is like the hardest and most important thing you can do. And when you find them, make sure you keep them and make sure they're satisfied and happy with the work environment. Um, you know,
Well, and it's all too easy not to, because it is a high demand of folks want to do this, who love this hobby and think, after having done a day job, hey, I really want to be doing games all the time. There's a really high supply of those people, and the demand doesn't meet that supply necessarily. And so when there's that difference in market, it is really easy to not compensate people well and lead to some kind of iffy practices. And so credit to you for doing that, but it leads to this kind of quality that not every publisher has. So I think credit to you for doing that. But it's not a mindset that everyone in that space always comes with. So yeah, good job, Justin.
thank you.
What is okay? I'm going to ask one more kind of restoration related question in terms of kind of funny stories or experiences, and then I'm going to get to the final question, which you don't remember, and I hesitate to even call you a fan if you don't remember this question. So I'll give you a different one first, though, which is, what is a game that a lot of folks may have asked you to restore? That, and I'll give you two of these. One is that you couldn't due to rights, and we heard about Hero Quest, but maybe another one that fits in that bill. And then one that you didn't want to restore just because you didn't think it was very good.
Huh. All right. Well, you know what? Let me bring up the list here. Well,
Ooh.
so I have. I don't know. You might be able to hear me clicking now. Is that bad? Is that bad for?
No, I can't hear it at all. And by the way, I should note I'm very disappointed that despite numerous requests, Restoration Games has not come out with their own version of Crossfire. A gamerly version of Crossfire, even though it's still in existence now. I still want.
I was gonna say, do you want us to make the game or just the commercial? Every time I hear you talk about it, I think you just want the commercial.
You're maybe not wrong there.
All right, so I know one of the ones that I'm. So what was with the two things? One that
I'll give you
issues, right?
Yeah, I'll give you two.
I will tell you the rights issues one right up because it's one of the first ones we looked at.
Yeah.
And that was Clue, the Great Museum Caper. Very cool game. It's sort of just tangentially Clue, so it would have been pretty easy to just not do Clue, just the Great Museum Caper without the Clue part, and then just make the game. It's a neat game. Has some cool components to it, which is something we always look for. We like games that have sort of unique components because it's a good draw, it's funny. So I'm looking at my list here. I see two of them now that are like that. But apparently, like the rights are all, messy. Let's put it that way. And I don't know that I can disclose much more than that. But with the original designers, there's some issues going on behind the scenes. They basically was just a non-starter. So that's one I would love to do at some point, but it doesn't seem like it's. Oh, I mean, obviously, like the big one. I can't even believe I didn't remember this first. Glory to Rome is on my. That's my next Great White Whale.
Okay.
Hero Quest is there. I would love to do that. I've put finger in the air sort of thing, but I don't know. I'm not super confident on that one.
How much would you change Glory to Rome if you got it? Like what would the restoration treatment on that game be?
I think about that a lot, honestly, because most of our restorations are like the game needs some work or the game needs to have a visual update. But quite candidly, the last version was pretty, stellar. It was gorgeous. The one by Heiko Günther that Cambridge put out, that black box one.
Yep.
So I think so I've thought about that, and I think again for that one, it's really just a matter of making it available. And so what I would do is I probably wouldn't change the game at all. I mean, I think by all accounts the game's pretty clear. I suppose if Carl Chuddick were interested, if he had thoughts about anything he would refine, I would certainly be willing to do that. But then it would be about finding a unique look for it. And so my thought was, if I were going to redo it, is to sort of go the sort of exact opposite way from the black box, which was very sort of minimalist and crisp and clean, very gorgeous. But I might go like more an opulent version, with like foil on the cards or something, a more like marble and gold motif, to sort of be a twist different from what the last version was. But really, there it would just be about making sure people could get it right. So
Easier said than done.
yeah.
And okay, so the other category of this was one that was
Oh, right,
really
right.
highly requested, but you just, in terms of the game, was just kind of a non-starter.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting one. I know there's one. I wouldn't say it's highly requested, but it's certainly been requested a number of times. Is the grape one, the California grape escape, I guess.
Oh boy.
I don't
See, the
know.
California grapes is a concept I barely overlap with, and I guarantee you I'm on the very edge of even knowing what that is.
So the grape escape, the cool part about it, and this part is cool. Now I grant you it's cool, right? Is I guess it wasn't California grapes, but I think they might have done a version with anyway, whatever. It's grape escape. It's like got Play-Doh, and you make your pieces out of Play-Doh, and you go around and like ultimately you can get like squashed. So like at some point like you get to squash somebody's Play-Doh piece. And like that part of it sounds very cool, but there's really not much more to the game. It's really just a gamified Play-Doh set.
I
And
mean,
I'm
not the
not
worst thing.
sure. No. I mean, it would be interesting, and if you could make it work, it would be very cool. I'm just not super confident that you wouldn't have to build an entirely new game that you just happen to use Play-Doh with. So I don't know.
I mean, that doesn't sound like the worst thing. Have Rob Daviau come up with a game that involves Play-Doh. Like,
Maybe.
I think that's workable.
Listen, I'm open to anything. Like I said, I have my sheet open now, and I'm looking at all these names, and like there's 30 games on here I'd love to do tomorrow. So we're
So this
definitely not we're not lacking for game ideas. It's about time and resources and getting the rights sometimes is challenging, and we've had games that we thought we were going to do that we couldn't quite make work. There's been a couple of those that we were close to doing that we couldn't quite make happen. So
not based on the commercial at all, but Don't Wake Daddy, that would be another one to try and do a redo of. I don't know.
is that not available?
I don't know. I don't actually shop, like, I'm not in Target looking at what's available.
Well,
these
here's
days.
the thing. That's true, but it's hard to tell these days because all the games are like that now, right?
Yeah.
Or as I call them, the poop games. Because all these games, there was a period of time. So the unicorn poop game or the whatever, don't step on it.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Then they made the unicorn version, and then like everything had poop in it after that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you know, but we were up for a taggy for Fireball Island.
Ooh.
That's the Chai Tag is the Chicago Toy and Game organization.
Humble brag.
They do the taggies. Yeah, we lost to the don't step in it. So
Oh, well, you win some, you lose some, Justin.
Humble indeed.
Sometimes you're running a 7-figure Kickstarter campaign, and sometimes you're losing to a game about poop. It just happens.
That's life.
All right. Have you remembered the final question?
No, I haven't.
I'm so disappointed in you. I can't even tell you how disappointed I am. I'll tell you the question anyway.
Okay.
Justin Jacobson, if you could be any one flavor of ice cream, what flavor would you be and why?
Yes, of course. I do feel bad now.
You should.
I mean, I never understood this question because it's if I could be it, not if like I could eat it.
No, it's just, okay.
Yeah.
Let me, and I have to clarify this every time.
Like what ice cream represents me.
I can't tell you how annoyed I am. I have to clarify this, but this is not your favorite ice cream. This is if you, Justin Jacobson, could embody one ice cream embodied the essence of Justin Jacobson. What ice cream would that be and why?
No, I know. That's what I'm saying. Like it's hard because it's not what my favorite ice cream is. So I have to think about it. I mean, the ice cream that might embody me best is one that I don't even like, for example.
That's fine.
I don't know.
I mean, hey, that says a lot about you if that's the case.
I feel like I'm going to go with Chunky Monkey because I'm a little bit bananas. I'm a little nutty. But also, like, monkeys are clever, right? Sort of. I'm a little clever. I don't know. I think I'm clever.
I think you're clever.
I'm about as clever as a monkey, and that monkey thinks they're clever, right? That's about right.
Okay, I like it. It's still runner-up to my favorite answer of all time, which was Jamie Stegmaier's of Chocolate Decadence. But
that sounds like his stage name.
It does. I told him as much, and for a brief time, I thought it was a funny idea to use that as a nickname, and then no one else got it because no one listens to the show. No, that's not true. People do listen. Thanks for listening, by the way. Cool. All right, so that's the answer. Chunky monkey. I dig it. All right, Justin. Well, plugs. This would be the time for plugs. Any plugs you want to give other than the fact that I think this entire episode will end up being a nice restoration plug?
So I think also I probably should go back because I think people will. I'll get this a lot if we don't actually answer where Hop and Johnny came from.
Oh yeah, sorry.
I have to tell you the Hop and Johnny story.
So you preempted my last question with the last story, which is fine. But no, tell me the Hop and Johnny story. Jeez.
All right. So my entire life. Well, we're on a team meeting, a restoration team meeting, and someone was going, and I said, "Oh, it's Hop and Johnny over here," which means like it's busy, like it's Hop and Johnny. It's very busy, and I just said it. I said, "Oh, it's Hop and Johnny over here," and I look up, and like everybody on the screen is like looking at me like I've got a third eye. What did you just say? I said, "Hop and Johnny." Busy, Hop and Johnny. And everybody's like, "What are you talking about? That's not a saying." I was like, "Of course it is. Hop and Johnny. Everybody knows that." And then, so I was like, well, maybe it's just regional. Like maybe it's just like if you grew up in South Florida, you know what Hop and Johnny is. And like, I Googled it. I can't find any reference to Hop and Johnny anywhere on the internet. Not Hop and John. Now I know that like the food thing, but not that. Hop and John. And so I texted my cousins. I thought maybe it was just like an inside joke with my cousins. But I've literally said this my entire life. So I text my cousin, like, you know Hop and Johnny, right? And they're like, no, what are you talking about? What's Hop and Johnny? I've grown up with them, like my brothers, like since I was a kid. So now I'm freaking out. And I go to my wife and I say, you've heard me say Hop and Johnny. She said, yeah, you say it all the time. I never knew what the hell it meant. So I had made this saying up in my head and just started using it. And no one for like 30 years would say anything to me. I would just be using Hop and Johnny. So now I did get the team to finally adopt it. So now, and I hopefully, dear listener out there, you will take this fine expression and use it in your life, and we can actually make it a thing. So if you're really busy, if things are busy, Hop and Johnny.
I guarantee you I'm going to use this with at least one client, and if anyone recognizes it, I'll let you know.
Okay.
But
I wouldn't count on it.
I wouldn't count on it. It sounds like something you just made up.
It's like my own personal Kazam. You're familiar with the Kazam thing, right?
I am familiar with.
Yeah. It's my own personal Kazam.
No, I absolutely. There's a term for that. I don't know what it is offhand, but yeah. Oh well. Well, Justin, if folks want to get in touch with you, send you their graphic design resumes, ask you their publisher questions, or tell you, no, Hop and Johnny really is a thing, what's the best way for them to do that?
So like I said, active on social media, in particular Twitter, at Restoration Game. Leave off the S for savings. So I'm very active on Twitter. Good. I'll always respond. If you need to email me, it's justin@restorationgames.com. I'm active on Board Game Geek as well. So if you post over there, I'll see it. I'm always happy to talk to people about whatever.
Nice. Well, very good. Well, thank you for taking the time to talk to me about whatever. And I hope you stay hopping Johnny in 2021.
Working on it.
Thanks, Justin.
Thank you.
Well, we've talked a lot the last couple episodes about the Freedom 5 Kickstarter that was up from our friends over at ArcaneWonders.com. And shucks, wouldn't you know it, the campaign is over. A very successful campaign. They had almost $1 million in pledges, $944,247. Oh my goodness, that's so much money. Now, don't fret though, because if you didn't back in time, you can still do a late pledge. You can get the Citizen Pledge for $49. You can do the Hero Pledge, which is for the Kickstarter exclusive edition, for $109. So head on over to freedom5game.com. That's freedom5, F-I-V-E, game.com. That'll send you over to their late pledge site where you can take a look at all the different options for getting in a late pledge. Not sure how long this is going to be up and running for, so I would say hurry, act now. Definitely check it out. That's freedom5game.com. Additionally, check out all of Arcane Wonders' other awesome titles at arcanewonders.com. All right, go check it out. All right, well, Alex, thanks for that interview, and thanks to Justin Jacobson for filling us in on Hop and Johnny. I'm certainly going to use that around the office tomorrow because we're often Hop and Johnny.
Yeah. Well, and Either it works in both cases because when this drops, you'll be back in the office following a delicious Thanksgiving meal. Or currently, it is again Thursday and about to be Friday. Are you actually hopping Johnny on most Fridays, Sean?
Oh yeah. Fridays are crazy. There's always like Fridays are our craziest in the office because there's some weird custody exchange problem. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, that was Justin Jacobson. Now we're gonna go over to a review, possibly by myself, possibly with Mariah, possibly with Raquel, but probably Mariah or probably myself because we haven't figured this out yet. But yeah, we're gonna review one of the games we just talked about, which is Unmatched.
Little Red Riding Hood versus Beowulf.
I thought you were correcting me, and so I stopped. And then you jumped in, and you
No, I was just going to say it the first time.
You drank my milkshake.
Your thunder is delicious, as is your milkshake.
Okay, man, you're enraging me. I'm getting rage tokens from you.
All right, let's hit it. Let's hit that review.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit then about Unmatched Little Red Riding Hood versus Beowulf. Now, this is kind of an interesting review for a couple different reasons. Number one, so Unmatched is kind of a modular game. This is sort of a standalone expansion, but even that's not really the right term because I know Justin in the Holding Court interview with Alex kind of talked about how these are all modular. You could pick up any of these unmatched sets and basically just kind of hit the ground running. So we've already reviewed the Cobble and Fog Unmatched a couple months ago. In addition, last week on the podcast, I talked about the Buffy version. And so we wouldn't normally necessarily kind of turn around and do such a quick review of another version of the game so soon after the last review. But what wound up happening, and this is just sort of a full disclaimer out there, that again, this was a review copy that Suze sent us, Suzanne Sheldon, and Suze is very good friends with Alex and myself, and just kind of want that to be clear. You know, she reached out to me and she said, "Hey, we've got this super secret Little Red Riding Hood versus Beowulf Unmatched set. Do you want it?" I'm like, "Heck, yes, I do." Now, let me tell you something. If I didn't want it, or if I was like, I would have said no. Like, for example, when Stop Thief came out from Restoration, that's something where we had talked and said, yeah, I don't want that. I'm not going to enjoy that. It's a, hidden movement game. And for people that like hidden movement, it's supposed to be fantastic. I do not like hidden movement. So this really was an interest to do this. It's very cool that it's this super secret release that just kind of came out of nowhere. They didn't announce it. Very cool. So definitely wanted to be a part of that. But I just want kind of all of that out there for this review. Now, my thoughts for Unmatched have already, we've already discussed them because we've reviewed a prior version of the game. So what I'm going to do for this review is I'm going to do a rules overview and my thoughts about the Unmatched system in general. And so if you already heard that, if you already know about what I think about Unmatched and how to play Unmatched, then go ahead and skip ahead and I'll put a timestamp in the show notes that will just fast forward you to my thoughts specifically on this set. So that's the plan. All right, well, let's jump into Unmatched. What is this game? Ultimately, this is a dueling style game. I really like it at 2 players. You can play it at 4-player count where you have teams, but this is based off of Star Wars Epic Duels. Star Wars Epic Duels was originally published by Milton Bradley Games, designed by Craig Van Ness and Rob Davio. And now Justin Jacobson and Rob Davio have the credits for this restored game, Unmatched. And in Unmatched, you're going to take on the role of a hero. That hero may possibly have a sidekick or multiple sidekicks. And the goal is to reduce your opponent's hit points, their hero's hit points, to 0. This battle is going to take place on a board. So this is, it's not really an abstracted card playing game like Magic the Gathering, but instead it's more of a skirmish game with miniatures. The board is composed of different circles that your pieces can move into that have lines showing adjacency. And the circles are colored in certain ways to denote what's in the same zone. And some of the circles might be considered in multiple zones. They might be part of 2 or 3 zones. And that's important for ranged attacks, because basically you can always fire a ranged attack if you're adjacent or in the same zone as the target. Additionally, there are some cards that might say, do X to every figure or every fighter that's in the zone. Now, ultimately, you are carrying out your plans, fighting your opponent by use of an individual asymmetric deck that is unique to that particular character and sidekicks, whatever. You'll start off the game by drawing 5 cards, by placing your hero and any sidekicks in somewhat predetermined areas. And you'll draw the 5 cards, and from there, you're off to the races. You're going to take turns. On each of your turns, you must take exactly 2 actions, and there are 3 available actions you can take. You can maneuver, you can scheme, or you can attack. Maneuvering is the primary way where you're drawing cards and the primary way where you are moving your pieces about. You're maneuvering. So when you maneuver, you're going to first draw a card. That is mandatory. You're then going to move your fighters, and that is optional. So all of your fighters have a printed value. It's usually the same. Most of them are 2. There's a couple here and there that are 3, and you can move from one spot to another. That's 1 point of movement that are adjacent. You can move through friendly fighters. You just can't move through enemies. And you also have the ability to boost your movement. So you can discard a card from your hand, and there's a little boost value in the middle right of each card. Usually it's like 1, 2, 3, somewhere in there. And that's going to increase the movement for all of your fighters for that particular maneuver. So it's a good way to get some extra movement, but it's at the cost of a card. The second option that you could do during one of your actions is to scheme. These are yellow cards in your deck, and they are typically tied into one of your fighters, whether it's your hero or the sidekick. And it's some sort of an immediate effect that happens. Sometimes it might be movement. Sometimes it might be damage. Sometimes it might be drawing cards, but it's a scheme. It's pretty cool. And then the last action you have available to you is to attack. So the other cards in your deck are red attack cards. You have blue defense cards, and then you have purple cards, which can serve as either an attack or a defense card. So if I'm attacking, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play an attack card from my hand. In order to attack, I need to have a hero who is adjacent to a fighter who is adjacent to another fighter if it's a melee attack. Or, like I said before, if I'm doing a ranged attack, I either need to be adjacent to the target or I need to be in the same zone as the target. And I will then play either a red attack card or a purple multi-use card from my hand, and I will play it face down. I have to say who's attacking who, because it might not be clear based on where everyone's positioned, but I'll say, okay, this character is attacking this character. Here's the card I'm playing face down. So the defending player doesn't get a chance to see the printed attack value. And the printed attack value is going to be somewhere between 1 and 6, depending on the set and depending on the various cards. Now, at that point, the defending player has the option of playing a defense or a purple multi-use card from their hand to defend. So they'll choose to play that face down. We reveal them. And then essentially what we're doing is we're comparing the value of the attack to the value of the defense. So if I'm attacking with an attack 4 and the opponent is defending with a defense 3, that's a difference of 1. So 1 damage will get through. We'll tick it down on the little dial that comes with each fighter. And then I'm said to have won that particular combat for various effects. Sounds pretty simple, but there are some things that are going to add a little bit of complexity here. So combat cards can have certain effects. There are some that say resolve during combat. There are some that say resolve immediately, and there are some that resolve after combat. So, for example, an immediately effect might just say cancel all of the effects on your opponent's card, or it might give you some sort of benefit if a certain condition is met. Now, if anytime there are 2 things that would resolve simultaneously, for example, we both have cards that say resolve immediately, the defending player's card resolves first and then the attacking player's cards. So that's really going to spice up these combats a lot. It's not just this mathematical, I do X damage and you defend with this amount. Some really interesting effects, and when you know the decks well enough, You know the various characters well enough. There are ways that you're playing around certain cards or you're anticipating certain cards. Really, really nice aspect of the game. So those are the 3 actions. And like I said, you have to do 2 actions on your turn. You can mix and match. You can do them in whatever order you want. You just have to fully resolve 1 action before you start another action. Additionally, once I have taken my 2 actions, now it's my opponent's turn to take 2 actions. And we're just going to keep going back and forth until we've won. I will point out that if you're ever forced to draw a card, if you're ever forced to draw a card and you can't, then all of your fighters start taking damage. So obviously going through your deck is good because it gives you more options, more cards to play. But the quicker you do that, and if you're really kind of outpacing your opponent, that's something to kind of worry about. And it's going to create this, attrition's almost not the right word because it can get pretty brutal. So that's how you play the Unmatched system. And like I've talked about before, if you listen to last week's episode where I talked about Buffy, and then you listen to our review of Unmatched, Cobble and Fog, you'll know that I really like this system. I really like these dueling games. Whether they're more abstracted and just kind of card play games or whether there's a skirmish element here, this is definitely on the lighter end of skirmish games. I've played a lot of different miniature skirmish games over the years with varying degrees of complexity. Like I said, this is definitely on the lighter side, and I definitely appreciate that. I enjoy more complex skirmish games, but they are a bit more of a lifestyle game in a way. And Unmatched is a very accessible game. It's a game where Raquel really enjoyed it. Mariah really enjoyed it. And I think the fitting thing, when I think of Raquel, we've played a lot of dueling style games over the years. Like I think of Android Netrunner. She liked it, but she said, I don't want to play this because you're always going to know the cards better. You're always going to know the system better because you're going to put the time to memorize all the cards. That's what she's telling me. And I get that. It almost feels like you're always kind of a step behind. It's always difficult with certain games where unless everyone's kind of progressing at the same level, you could have someone just kind of rocket ahead in terms of their understanding of the game and making unfun play experiences. And she didn't get that with this at all. Now, I definitely think there's an element there. And I think I recall in our review, Cobble and Fog, where Alex and Abby tended to think that. And I thought that less so. I thought that there's definitely a level of accessibility here that, yes, as an experienced Unmatched player, knowledge of the decks, knowledge of the cards is absolutely going to help. But I didn't feel like it was so bad to make it painful, and Raquel didn't either. And she's very sensitive to that. So that's something I appreciated. Again, I think this is a really accessible game. The system, because really this is a system, the system is really cool because you can have all of these unique characters from different genres, from different pieces of fiction, fable, somewhat history, whatever, and that they could interact, that you can mix and match them. Like it's really cool. I really like that. And so I think at the time when we reviewed Cobble and Fog, I think I gave it a 5. And my feelings of the system are probably still that. It's still probably a 5, but it's a very high 5, and maybe it's going to have the potential to be a 6. And just so people are aware, if you're not a regular listener to the Dukes of Dice podcast, we rate everything here on the podcast on a 6-point scale, 1 to 6. A 1 is poorly designed but playable, not necessarily fun. A 6 is an all-time favorite that's a contender for the top 10. And for me, this is a 5. A great game will rarely turn down a play of it. And I think that's really accurate. Like I said, I think this could be a 6. This is still something that Mariah and Raquel will be willing to play on occasion. I'm hoping this is something that as Chewie gets a little bit older, she'd be very interested in. She's already seen the cards. She's seen, the art and she really likes it. I think this is something we might be able to play at some point soon in the future. But right now, my thoughts on the system overall, I'm keeping it at a 5. If I'm going to give the Little Red versus Beowulf set a separate score, I guess we'll kind of talk about that when I tell you about my thoughts about the actual box set that we're talking about today. So that's just kind of my general thoughts for Unmatched, if you hadn't heard us talk about it before. But now I'll just go ahead and transition to this set. So let's talk about this set. One of the things I like about the different Unmatched sets is they add something to the game. They add little tweaks. It's still the same basic system, but they add some new rule or some new interaction that you're like, oh, that's cool. So the big two things are, number one, there's a two-sided board. There's like the mead hall, and then I guess it's Granny's. Is it Granny's cottage? I think. And it introduces doors. There's a door mechanic where basically it's these little cardboard cutouts that you put on the doors, or you put on the spaces, and it blocks adjacency, and you have to spend a point of movement during maneuvering to open them, basically. So that's cool. Additionally, and I don't know, because I haven't played every single Unmatched character, although I own 4 of them now, 4 boxes. So that's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 characters that I've played with. And so I'm not sure if they've done this in prior sets. I don't believe they've done it in sets that I've had. But they let you, with Beowulf, some of the Beowulf cards, they let you boost your attack. Well, I think there are ways that you could have boosted your attack in other ones. There are ones that like let you take your opponent's cards from their hand and boost them. I know with the Buffy set, there's the blind boost where you're revealing a card. Like Drusilla lets you reveal cards from the top of your deck to do a blind boost, and then they get discarded. So I could be wrong on that. I'd have to go back and look, but something I noticed anyway. All right, so let's talk about the set in general. And I'm kind of taking a step back from our normal review structure, just because it's just me and it's a little bit of a different review. So first off, I've got to say, this is such a bonkers set. Like it's clearly designed, and I think Justin said this various places online, that before it was announced what this pairing would be, that it was kind of a pun, like a groan-inducing pun set. So you think about it's Little Red Riding Hood and Beowulf, the wolf versus Little Red Riding Hood. So definitely groan-worthy, which I appreciate. And it's just interesting. I really dig some of these choices here that they make in these characters. So like obviously the Buffy set is hands down my favorite, hands down. And that's a licensed set. That's the second of the licensed sets, I believe. I think the Jurassic Park would be the first one. And they're going to be coming out with more licensed sets. But of course, they've also got all of these literary characters that are, kind of open source. Open source is the wrong word. What's the they're open to the public for intellectual property purposes. And wow, as a lawyer, I should know what that term is. But I'm completely blanking on it right now. And so obviously with Sherlock Holmes and with Dracula and the Invisible Man, Jekyll and Hyde from Cobble and Fog, like that's all really interesting, right? Little Red Riding Hood and Beowulf are not ones I would have immediately thought about, but they turn out to be pretty cool. They turn out to be pretty sweet. So let's do Little Red Riding Hood first. So Little Red Riding Hood is the hero. She has a sidekick who is the huntsman. Is it the woodsman or the huntsman? It's the huntsman. I know in the fairy tale sometimes it's referred to as the woodsman. The Red Riding Hood fable or fairy tale, I guess. In some versions he winds up saving her. In some versions she winds up saving herself from the big bad wolf. But let's talk about what they do. So Little Red is a melee character. She starts with 14 health. And she says, resolve an effect on a card you play if the symbol next to the effect matches the item in your basket. And then at the start of the game, place Little Red's basket in your discard pile. All right, let's break that down a little bit. So her basket, it's basically kind of just a placeholder card, and it provides the wild symbol. So there are 3 different symbols for Little Red Riding Hood. There's a pair of knives, looks like a flower, and then there's a wolf symbol. And then there's, like I said, the wild symbol, which kind of combines all of those. And so the Little Red's basket starts on your discard pile, and it has the wild symbol, because now whenever I play certain cards, if that card in the text box matches the topmost card of my basket, which is the topmost card of my discard pile, I'm going to get some sort of bonus effect. And so you have to be really, really thoughtful in how you're playing this, how you're discarding cards, how you're playing cards. Because so for example, there is this attack card that says what big ears you have. It attacks for 4, and it does nothing else unless the symbols match in your basket. And this says if you have the knives symbol, you may play this card as a defense card instead. In fact, I remember when the first time Raquel and I played, she played this as her defense card, and I'm like, what the heck? We went over the rules again. I thought you knew how to play this game. I wasn't really that mean. But she's like, no, read the text. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. It's just interesting because in a lot of cases, the cards just attack and defend. And then if it matches, you get that benefit. Others, like for example, there is, let's see, it's a huntsman scheme. It's called a Grim Tale, like Grimm's Fairy Tales. And it says little red recovers 2 health. All right, cool. However, if you have the matching wolf symbol in your basket, it says little red recovers 4 health instead. So in other situations, it's get a slight benefit, or if it matches, get a better benefit. There's another card called Never Leave the Path. This is a little red scheme, and it gives you one of 3 options to do based on which symbol is in her basket. So for example, if it's the wolf symbol, place little red in any space, gain 1 action. If it's the knives symbol or the dagger symbol, deal 2 damage to each opposing fighter in the little red zone. Or if it's the flower symbol, you draw 3 cards. So all really, really powerful effects. And again, it's just kind of interesting to how you're preparing to use this card. I like the versatility of this card, but in order to get it to do what I want it to do, I have to play in such a way, whether it's me attacking with a certain card so that it then winds up as the topmost card of my discard pile, or maybe I'm maneuvering and I decide to boost with a certain card that I may not have otherwise boosted with, but it's going to give me that matching symbol. Really cool thought process there. I really dig it. And then as far as like some of the other cards and what they do, there's this whole series. I read the What Big Ears You Have card. There's also What Big Eyes You Have. What a terrible big mouth you have. What large hands you have. And I really like how the character comes through, both in terms of the art, in terms of how the cards are named, and then of course what the cards do. So yeah, this is really interesting. I should also mention the huntsman. The huntsman is a ranged fighter, a ranged sidekick. Starts off with 9 health, and they both have move 2. Let me talk about the art real quick. So cover and card illustrations is by Mark Aspinall. The board illustration is by Ian O'Toole. And looking at the card art for Little Red, first off, I love the art style in these games. I'm not an art expert, and so I don't have the right vocabulary to describe this art style, but it's just really solid. And I mean, take some time to look up some of these cards. It's very different. I mean, you look at Magic cards nowadays, modern Magic cards, they're very nice. They're very well done. They look good, but they're very samey in a lot of ways, compared to Magic cards like back in the day when they had a lot of individuality and character. These have a lot of character to them. I really like the style. I really like not just playing the game and looking at what I'm going to do, but just going through the art as I'm playing. That's always something nice. So final thoughts on the Little Red deck and character. I definitely think it's a tricksy hero and sidekick. You don't want to necessarily go in pedal to the metal with them, which is what Raquel did in the first game, and it turned out pretty bad. So even though Little Red is a melee character, you definitely want to take advantage of Huntsman's ranged ability, and Little Red can do all these little tricksy things, but it's really important that you're managing your basket right. I think that if you are simply ignoring that, you're not playing Little Red to her fullest. And so because of that, this is not a great deck for a beginner to start with. If I'm teaching someone the game, I am not giving them Little Red. Like it requires some forethought and some understanding of the game's mechanics really well so that you can fully take advantage of her basket. I like her a lot. I think this is on the higher end of complexity for the various character decks, and I'm excited to play with her more. All right, so that's Little Red. Let's talk about Beowulf. And Beowulf comes with himself and then also Wiglaf. So Beowulf is another fable. I guess it's an epic poem, right? It's an old English epic poem. And I remember reading, I don't think I read all of it, like a modern English translation, but I remember doing excerpts of it. I think it would have been my junior year in high school was when I read it. And Beowulf is this epic poem. He's some Scandinavian prince, and he comes to help the Danes. He defeats Grendel, and then Grendel's mom comes and attacks the mead hall of the king. And then 50 years later, Beowulf goes back to his own people, and he fights a dragon. And with the help of Wiglaf, he defeats the dragon, but he's mortally slain. Is my recollection. So Beowulf comes with Beowulf and Wiglaf. They're both melee characters. Beowulf has 17 health to start. Wiglaf has 9. They both have move 2. Beowulf has this rage mechanic. So his card says Beowulf starts with 1 rage. When Beowulf is dealt damaged, he gains 1 rage, and he can have a maximum of 3 rage. Now, when he's dealt damage, this damage can come from any source whatsoever, whether it's Wiglaf accidentally damaging him, or maybe not so accidentally. And so what are you doing with this rage? Well, it's a resource. Certain cards are going to say, spend rage to do this, or you get this bonus if you happen to have this amount of rage, or for each rage you have. And so it's another thing where you have to kind of be putting yourself in a position to be getting rage, or saying, I can't play this card yet until I've built up the appropriate amount of rage. And it's really interesting decisions as far as how you're playing out this deck. You're like, wow, I'd really like to attack my opponent right now with this card, but if I wait a little bit, and if I play the cards in the right order, I can benefit from this rage and really improve on that. So let's talk about some of the noteworthy cards in the Beowulf deck. So some of the rage cards. So like, for example, there's a defense card for Beowulf called the Equal of Grendel, and it has Grendel's severed arm in the art, which is really cool. And it's defense 3, and then an immediate effect. It says you may spend 2 rage to deal damage to the opposing fighter equal to the printed value of their card. And holy cow, I love cards in this game that damage your opponent's fighters. Let me explain that, because you're like, well, isn't that what you do? Well, yeah, but it's this whole attack, defend, reaction system. And this deals direct damage without going through the combat. It's just an extra effect of the card that they can't necessarily block in some way or otherwise mitigate in some way. I really love direct damage cards in this game. So that's a cool thing. There's the War King, which is another Beowulf card. It is an attack or defense card. It's only value 1, but it says during combat, you could spend any amount of rage. This card's value is +2 for each rage spent. So this could be a 7 attack card, and those can be really hard to defend against, especially kind of after the fact, and create some really big turns, but it requires some setup to get there. There's also, Beowulf has an attack card, attack value 3, no contest expecteth. After combat, if you attacked a sidekick and won the combat, you may spend 3 rage to defeat that sidekick. Boy, howdy, I set that up in one of our games with Raquel, where I built up my rage to 3. I only got 1 point through the huntsman. And what did I say the huntsman has? He has 9 health. I spent my 3 rage and basically did essentially 8 points of damage to kill the huntsman after the fact. Really cool. There's also a card called the Ancient Heirloom. it specifically says this card's effects cannot be canceled. I don't know if I've seen that. I bet you there's another card that does that too. And it says it's a 3 attack card for Beowulf. And it says during combat, you may spend 2 rage to make this card's value 5 instead. So kind of similar to the War King, except that then it says you can spend you may spend 1 rage to boost this card, and you could choose to do both of those things. So, I mean, you figure it's a 3 attack. I spend 2 rage to make it 5, okay? And then I'm trying to find the highest value boost card. I think it's 3. I don't see anything higher than a 3. So yeah, it's 3. So basically this can become an 8 value card if you spend 3 rage on it. So that's really cool. Now let's talk about Wiglaf a little bit too. His role in the story is he's one of Beowulf's men. When Beowulf is fighting the dragon, all of his men run off except for Wiglaf. And so Wiglaf obviously wants to do certain protective things. So like there's a Wiglaf 3 attack card, hot for the battle. After combat, Wiglaf may swap spaces with Beowulf. There's also a Wiglaf ability. Let's see here. It's a Wiglaf scheme. Looking for it. It's called Remnant of Valor. Wiglaf deals 1 damage to each adjacent fighter. If Beowulf was dealt damage this way, gain an action. So that sounds pretty cool. It's this area of effect thing. And if you're getting a point or 2 in on some of your opponent's fighters, but you're also hitting Beowulf, hey, that triggers him getting rage. And this basically becomes a free card if you damage Beowulf, because you get that action point back. So that's pretty cool. I would point out also, there is another Beowulf scheme called Golden Drinking Horn. And again, I'm not sure if there are other cards that do this, but these are what I would call modal cards, where they give you an option of doing 3 things. It says spend any amount of rage, choose a different effect for each rage spent. You can draw 2 cards, you can move Beowulf up to 4 spaces, or you can have him recover 2 health. So maybe you've only got the 1 rage, but one of these effects you desperately need. Great, do it there. Maybe you've built up the 3 rage and you can get all 3 of those actions. I said before with Little Red that she's not necessarily someone you want to send into the thick of it right off the bat. Beowulf, that's not the case with him. He wants to get damage. There's cards in here that will heal him. I mean, all the decks have some amount of healing, but Beowulf, again, starts with a higher, fairly high life total of 17, one of the higher life totals. And Wiglaf with 9 is pretty beefy for a sidekick as well. And so they definitely want to be in the thick of it. Getting damaged early, getting that rage that you can spend on your cards to really make them overpowered is definitely something that you want to do. And this is, I think, a more suitable starter character. Not to say that there aren't some complexities here. There certainly are. But I think for a lot of people, it would be easier to manage this rage as a resource as opposed to making sure you have the right card in your discard pile for Little Red. So in retrospect, when Raquel and I played this for the first time, I gave her Little Red and I took Beowulf. Not that it was her first time playing the system, but I think I would have preferred to have her take Beowulf first because she hasn't played the game as much as I have. And again, looking at the art for Beowulf, it's these, this beefy Scandinavian dude. I really love this art. I mean, I really do. I think it's fantastic. So yeah, so let's talk about my thoughts about this set. I like this set less than Buffy. I think I like it less than Cobble and Fog, but I probably like it more than Jurassic Park InGen versus Raptors. I am definitely, when it comes to this game, I'm going to be a completionist, at least with what's out so far. I want to own everything that's out so far. I'm missing the Bruce Lee, and I'm missing the Legend one with King Arthur and Medusa, Sinbad, and Alice. I think I'm trying to remember if that's it. But as of now, I definitely want to collect this game. I really enjoy. I think I said that one of the things that made me the most sad about this game is that the inserts are incredible. They are these the vacuum form inserts, but they have recessed spots for everything, for the little dials, for the symbols. Like they're perfect. They're such perfect inserts. What I don't want to do though is take up a bunch of shelf space because I'm I'm very limited on what I've got now. I have too many games. But I don't necessarily want to take up a lot of shelf space. Like you could put everyone in a bag, the cards, the tokens, put them all in a bag, put them in one box, and you're done. And I haven't done that. I'm not doing that anytime soon. I'm letting them take up the shelf space. But there's going to come a point in the future when Restoration has released their 20th box of this, then I'm not going to have room for all that. And they're going to have to go in little plastic baggies. It's a terrible first world problem to have, but I've got it and I'll make do. So, yeah, I think this is a really good set. I think that I'm always excited, like I said before, to see what they're going to do with the mechanics of a particular deck to make it set apart from the other heroes that they've come out with already, and to make it specific to that character. And I think it's pretty interesting. I mean, I think you look at Little Red, and the story is, she has things in her basket. Like she hides the weapon, right? She hides the axe in her basket. So it's a matter of what's in her basket right now and how's that going to help her. This idea of rage with Beowulf, I think, is really cool. I think this is good. I think this is a really good set. And so when I say of the 4 that I now have, it's the third of 4. I mean, that's the bottom half, but that's not saying anything terrible. Cause I like the Raptors engine. I think it's good too. But certainly Buffy having come out right before this, Buffy is just, I really love it, folks. I really, really love Buffy. If you're a completionist, obviously you're going to need to get the set, but I would say this wouldn't be the set that I start with. From what I've played, like if someone's going to ask, where should I start? I think the 2-player duel is good. And so having just 2, like it's not a big investment to get a 2-player box, but it's not that much more expensive to get a 4-player box. I think Cobble and Fog is a great entry point, because Cobble and Fog, people are very familiar with those characters in a lot of ways, and it gives you the versatility of trying things out. Plus, if you've got 4 players, you can play the team game, and that's all well and good. So I think that would be my recommended starting point, unless someone said, hey, I really like Buffy, should I start there? And I'd be like, absolutely, start with Buffy. If Buffy's not a huge thing for you, then start with Cobble and Fog. But I think, again, because there's a little bit more complexity with Little Red, I would be hesitant to say that this is something that you should start off with. If you're new to Unmatched, I'd say pick up Cobble and Fog. If you like the game well enough and you're interested in other stuff, I think this is a great additional set to have. I know both Mariah and Raquel really gravitated towards Little Red. Like they thought it was super cool. They loved the art. And there's that resonance there, I think. I mean, I feel like growing up with fairy tales, there's just this natural, there's a reason where these things have stood the test of time, whether it's through oral tradition or through different written tellings of it. And it creates this resonance for people, that I think is really cool. So overall, I think this is a fantastic set. I would say that on the Dukes of Dice scale, I'm going to give this still a 5. A great game. Will rarely turn down a play of it. This is, a very high 5. There is always the chance that this could hit a 6 at some point in the future. I think this is a fantastic system. I said it before, this is an accessible system, and I think that's really important. So, all right, well, that's going to do it for my look at Unmatched, Little Red Riding Hood versus Beowulf. Thanks to Restoration Games. Thanks for Justin and Suze hooking us up with this advanced copy, this super secret copy. Really do appreciate it. It was really fun, and these characters will definitely get plenty of use in the near future. It should be available now, so go check it out.
Well, big thanks to whoever joined Sean for that one. I'm sure it was fantastic. So nice job to both of you, or just you.
Why don't you say big thanks to, and then cover your mouth?
Oh, okay. Here we go. Big thanks to for doing an amazing review with Sean, or without Sean, or Sean by himself. I'm not sure. The possibilities are endless.
Oh, wait, this is audio only. We don't need to cover your mouth.
Oh, okay.
To dub that in
enough.
later.
Anyway. Hey, Sean, before we wrap things up, let's go to the best of the rest, the episode names we didn't pick.
Let's do them. So first, we have Chewy Ramirez, who suggested, hey, Beowulf, don't look so wolfy. I think it was terrible, but we didn't have many to pick from. Alex, who's next?
Yeah, guild member Alex Goldsmith came with Beowulfing it down, referencing Beowulf and the delicious Thanksgiving meal I'm sure everyone just enjoyed.
And then former President Jimmy Carter suggested, why are there no peanuts in this Little Red Riding Hood Beowulf game? Because I was a peanut farmer.
Not a good name, and I don't think he quite understood the concept.
We never would have picked it. Never. Yeah. Not a million years.
And then the name father, Steve O'Rourke, with didn't get one from him, but just based on reputation, he earned a spot in the best of the rest here.
It would have been good. I think it would have been good.
I would have been really good. Yeah.
How many is that? Are we at 3?
So far, you got one more. You got one more.
One more. Oh shoot, I have to do it. And then thanks to Anonymous, not a person that's not named, but actual Anonymous, the hackers. Yeah, the hackers.
Oh geez.
And they suggested Little Red Wolfenstein.
No, they suggested sending Bitcoin their way to get back control of our computer.
Put Bitcoin in my basket. Oh my! What big Bitcoins you have?
Wait. No, I think you have to rename this episode now. Put some Bitcoin in my basket is now the official name of this episode.
Wow. I'm so glad we don't do this.
Oh, no, that's great. I love it. Put some Bitcoin. People are going to be so confused. It's going to be great. Put some Bitcoin in my basket. Awful.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for episode 239. Thanks again to everyone's favorite guild member, Sean Ramirez, for the title suggestion of Cyberhood. The Cyberwolf? Cyberhood.
No, Cyberhood.
Cyberhood, whatever the heck that means. Until next time, this is Sean.
And Alex.
And Duke you later, everybody.
Thank you so much for listening to the Dukes of Dice. Today's episode was recorded in the Duchy on November 19th, 2020. Our theme music provided by Carbohydro M from his Prime Legacy album. The Dukes of Dice are a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. For other great board gaming podcasts, check out Dice Tower Network. For other great board gaming podcasts, check out DicetowerNetwork.com. And for all ways to the Duchy, go to DukesOfDice.com. Find us on Twitter at Dukes of Dice. Join in conversations on our Board Game Geek Guild. Find us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks to our sponsors, Arcane Wonders and Game Toppers LLC. You can learn more about Arcane Wonders at ArcaneWonders.com and find out all you need to know about Game Toppers at GameToppersLLC.com. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks, actually this time. Until then, game on.